How has the Liberal Party changed since the days of the Howard government?
Well, look, I think it had already changed by the time of the Howard government. I mean, we look back on the Howard government today because the Liberal Party, state and nationally, is in a state of such disarray and sort of moribund dissolution that the Howard government looks, by contrast, like the very gold standard of a party that believed something. But indeed, the further we get away from it, I think there are many aspects even of my own performance as a backbencher and junior minister in the government, which I think already reflected a very significant drift away from the party's foundation values. Daniel, every organisation over time is at risk of becoming self-serving. It may be established with a mission to reach the world, but the temptation for the organisation to serve its own interests rather than the interests of its members is always real. And whether you're in a company, a charity, a church, or a government, or a political party. And what happens is the party itself enjoys a range of privileges and has a range of assets. And the individuals in the leadership can, over time, become more preoccupied with building their own sort of power base within the party than with the party's actual mission statement. And the Liberal Party essentially is a bit like the tortoise that got flipped over by, I would say, a group of lobbyists and professional careerists who could see that it was a powerful brand that was going to attract sort of a third of the primary vote in any election by habitual behaviours of the electorate. And that therefore, if they could take control of the franchise, they could deliver a range of benefits to themselves and each other in the form of lobbying contracts, rationing access to ministers, getting jobs as staffers, and indeed the ultimate prize, getting pre-selected to Parliament. And effectively now, the other great challenge for any political party is the seductive power of the state. That the state likewise is capable of shearing off its democratic moorings and acting in the interest of the state rather than in the interest of the citizens. And that's what's happened in Australia. So the mission creep of the state, it just grows and grows as a percentage of gross domestic product, and it has unlimited ambitions in its desire for control and its desire for revenue. And what the state does is it seeks to seduce the political parties to join the side of the state against the citizens, rather than those parties representing the citizens against the state. And so now you find with both major parties, Liberal, Labor, and I would include the Greens, they're virtually indistinguishable from the interests of the state. And they are entirely sympathetic and supportive of each new sort of power grab. So right now, for example, the Albanese government is proposing a completely draconian new measure to control public speech, which is described as a crusade against misinformation and disinformation. It's an absolutely Orwellian proposition. It flies in the face of 1,000 years of the British common law, enshrining the principles and conventions of free speech, dissent. Yet that legislation is not original to the Labor Party. it was first introduced by Paul Fletcher, the Liberal Party's communications minister, about 4 or 5 years ago. So that just tells you that both major parties have had this complete implosion. They have both fallen like the antlion's conical sand trap. They've just fallen into the state, and they no longer possess any natural ligaments or cartilage of their own philosophical ballast. They're just, like the chameleon lizard. They just take on the color, texture, and form of the state.